All right, welcome to the Successful Chiro Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. George Birnbach, and today we are getting into one of the most talked about shifts happening in chiropractic right now, and nobody has a better front row seat to this than my guest. Nick Fisher started his career building websites for local businesses. He watched the entire digital revolution unfold from the inside. And instead of just riding the wave, he built a system that helps chiropractors dominate it. Now, he works with a lot of our clients, and I'm really excited. He's the founder of Chiro Basix, the author of the Chiropractors Marketing Playbook, and he's helped practices across this country fill their schedule and change more lives through the power of chiropractic care. So, Nick, welcome on to the show.
Thanks, Dr. George. That was a pretty impressive intro. Thank you so much for making me look so good.
Absolutely. It's kind of easy. Absolutely. We have quite a few clients who are using your service now, and one after the other is raving about not only the increase in new patients, but the structure at which you are bringing. Because being in the digital space for over a decade, how are you currently seeing AI changes and the way that AI is changing the game for chiropractic practices?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the digital space, and I think a lot of practices kind of get lost in the sauce because they're not sure like what they're supposed to be doing. And, obviously we've got this like whole AI revolution thing going on. And now the question is, well, should I be using this in my practice? And how do I use it? And what am I using it for? So we've kind of been helping practices navigate that a little bit. We've got some AI stuff we're doing for our clients and providing tips and tricks around the different ways that you can implement different AI tools in different capacities. So, generally speaking, we typically see AI kind of playing a role in two major areas of the practice. The first is what we kind of consider like the marketing side, right? Where you can use AI tools to help promote the practice, create content, educate patients, and that whole like component. You've heard of the tools like ChatGPT, and you've got all these like tools that help you like write content, do social posts, etc. And we'll get into some of that. Then you've got the other side, which is more like creating operational efficiencies. Can AI do tasks inside of the practice for me to make myself more efficient, to make my team more efficient? So you've kind of got like these two pipelines of where AI is impacting practices and how it's helping practices grow and become more efficient and save money and all the things.
I think that's fantastic. So I started in practice in 1998. That's a lot of years ago for some people listening right now, and that's nothing for some of the folks listening. But when we started in marketing, we had this old book called The Yellow Pages. That was the epitome of where we were spending our money. We didn't have online ads and things like that. So these two big buckets that you talk about, right? We basically have content production or some element of online marketing, and then we have internal operational efficiency. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay. So if we look at this, we don't really have the modern day marketing working sequentially where we do one, then the next, then the next. Some of these things work simultaneously. So you're hitting two fronts at the same time. And how you market and how you operate have to be paid attention to. So let me ask you this question. Is or are these changes fundamentally changing how practices attract patients? Or are they also affecting the retention side that decreases the stress on new patient marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the answer is probably both. You've got AI systems that have expedited the ability to create content and to create patient education, which can help with like retention and get and building trust and confidence that this is the right place to be. You've also got like this whole concept of AI helping with, again, some of those operational things. So, imagine leads coming in, and instead of you having to manually follow up with people, you have a system in place that does it automatically. You have like a digital employee essentially that is kind of creating those touch points and building those communication channels to help with that, again, that operational efficiency. When it comes to like how patients are discovering chiropractic practices and local practices and doctors to get support with whatever issues they're having. People are kind of migrating away from the traditional methods of finding people like Google search, and now you have, AI search. Instead of asking Google, now you're asking AI. And is your practice set up to like show up in those places and be visible for the people that are actively engaging in these new tools? So it's kind of like this two front, method where again, you're trying to use AI to help patient discovery, education, draw people in, use AI to create operational efficiencies, and all that kind of intertwines with the different tools and how you actually operate in the practice.
That's fantastic. What I enjoy witnessing is that the AI engines, regardless of which one you're using, most people misuse it. They just use it like a Google search engine.
Right.
But but if they take the time to learn just a little bit, it means a lot for the doctors who just don't want to wrap their head around marketing. But we need to break that down based on the work that you do over at Chiro Basix, right? Because I see your websites, I love your websites, I see the back end automations are fantastic. And when people tell me, I just told Nick what I wanted, he kind of took the reins. How is AI changing content production for the doctors who truly feel that's not my thing? I just need to focus over here on patient care.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you could implement, so if you wanted to like a practice wanted to DIY some content or like DIY some marketing, obviously there's tools to help make that significantly more efficient nowadays. Instead of you having to sit down and like manually write what social media ad or post should I put out or what email campaign should I be, trying to blast out, you can just ask AI. You can build a persona of who you're targeting and who your patients are and kind of your brand and have that relationship with Chat GPT or Gemini or Claude or, there's a dozen of them nowadays, but you build that kind of like relationship that it starts to understand you and your practice and it can start producing that stuff for you. And then now it just becomes of you copy and paste it into whatever, channel that you're trying to distribute it on. And now the tools are getting so good where now they're connecting to those tools. So now it's actually going to start doing not only creating the content, but then executing the content and distributing it and publishing it on your behalf. So, and previously in the old internet days, you had to do all this stuff manually. You had to hire copywriters, you had to have, strong brand guides, and you have to spend hours and time writing and creating and editing and, using direct response language and calls to action and all these things. And you had to like be an expert at copyright and like executing and graphic design and how to build a website and all these things. And now you just have tools that it already knows how to do that because it can read the entire internet as its brain and start executing this stuff on your behalf. You just kind of tell it what you want it to do, and it can take that off your plate. Now, internally, we're capitalizing on that opportunity to create our own operational efficiencies. So, for practices that are not necessarily as tech savvy or not necessarily wanting to learn the ins and outs of these tools and how to use them and which tools to use and or just don't want to spend the time to like figure all that out, which, it can be time consuming. That's where we come in and we, supply those as services and we're able to do so at an expedited rate because of the AI tools and infrastructure that's, becoming publicly available.
There's so much to dive into here, but would you say, just a quick question maybe to you, content used to be for the big guys with the marketing team, right? But would you consider AI the equalizer now?
Definitely. I think it's made it significantly easier for people who, are not like the big players can participate in that level of marketing. And man, it's so important, especially in the chiropractic space, because you have such a knowledge gap of patient education and what they actually understand about spinal care. The marketing game is shifting in chiropractic. It's not we don't want to race to the bottom in our prices to try to like run these gimmicky tactics. We really have to focus on establishing authority, educating people, and getting them to understand why they want to see a chiropractor, which is why we talk so much about content and patient education. And these tools enable that. You can use tools for writing emails, creating social media posts, creating blog articles that can help you rank higher on search engines. You can do we do AI podcasts where we're copying people's voice and cloning their voice and running a podcast. You've got the AI avatars with the video stuff. I think, we talked about that at the last seminar where we can clone yourself in a video, and now we can crank out video content at a rapid rate where before you'd have to like hire a whole production team and or like get lights and cameras and all these things, and you have to sit down for a full day just to record a bunch of stuff, and who knows if it's actually going to turn out good. Instead, we can do it in minutes with AI tools, and it's pretty phenomenal how it's impacting the smaller players who maybe are not like inherently content creators can tap into that market and actually be exposed and create all this visibility online. It's really, really exciting for people who are, this is kind of outside of their normal scope.
I think it's pretty fantastic. And I was playing around with some of these AI tools, and I made the little George bot and my little video bot, and I never liked how the audio sounded. And then I ran into one that cloned my voice so well, I couldn't tell the difference between it. But when I'm teaching, there are certain sound bites I tend to fall back on, certain analogies, certain education pieces. Are you believing or are you seeing that AI can actually replicate the sound of the doctor and the philosophy of the practice, even though we're looking at 100 different offices, 100 different pieces? Can they really hone in on that one doctor's voice and messaging?
Yeah, that's a great question because everybody kind of sounds and acts and has different mannerisms in the way they speak. The answer is yeah. The tools are getting so good is you can actually train them to pretend to be you. So using your style of language and your influx and deflux in your voice and tone and your pauses and gaps and the way you speak, it's gotten really good at that. The key component about any of the AI tools is really becoming really good at providing context and then providing good prompting. So what you put into it is going to equate to the quality that you get out of it. If you are lazy with it and you don't give it much context, you don't give it good prompts and questions and et cetera, you're going to get generic answers. You're going to get generic answers that are probably not going to get you very far. But if you provide context, an example might be you can plug the AI tool into your email system. The AI will go read all of your emails, and now it knows how you write emails. So now it can replicate kind of how you write emails. So when it starts producing emails for you and pre-drafting them before you send, it already sounds like you. It's written how you would write it. It uses the similar language that you like to use. It's kind of got your brain behind the scenes because it sees you answering questions and providing details. You're giving it all that context. So then it's trained on whatever information you're providing it so it can then get you better results at the end.
It's pretty amazing. I'm glad I paid attention to English class if it's going to look at all my old emails to come up with my future emails.
The third
But
grade English teacher would be proud.
I know it's so funny. But the way that most people that I get to coach and they're looking at AI, they still see it as something that's fun, but not really approachable or trustable for the long term inside of their practice. It's almost like if I plug this in, is it going to run off without me? What are the safety valves that you see over at Chiro Basix or you see clinics putting in so that they have a trust in the system of brand building?
Yeah, that is a really good point because AI systems can hallucinate, right? They can produce things that are not factual or not 100% true or, if you think about, where the AI learns its information, it's the internet. And we all know you can trust everything on the internet, right? So you have to be a little bit careful with like the outputs. It's definitely good to have like human checkpoints,
Hmm.
an approval process essentially, where okay, AI produces an email for you. You should probably check the email to make sure that it's accurate. If you wanted to write a blog article, you should have some human oversight before it just automatically publishes it. You don't want to put your name on something where it kind of created something that's not factual. There's obviously issues with that. So
Hmm.
having those human like touch points and those guardrails is really, really important. I am under the impression that AI is going to continue to get better and better at not hallucinating and using its proper context to stay within, the realms of reality. AI is growing at such a rapid pace. I think what was it? The statistic was in previously when computers came out, it was computing power was doubling every 18 months.
Right.
And when it comes to AI, Now it's doubling every 6 months. So what we're seeing is every 6 months, AI is double what it was before. And it's insane how smart and capable these machines are becoming. And I assume that that's going to produce better output as we march forward. I mean, we're really at the starting point of what AI is actually going to be able to do in our society. So it's super exciting. It's also a little scary in some capacity, but yeah.
It really is a little bit frightening because the speed at which it moves is tremendous. And I was having a conversation with one of my friends who's in charge of a large AI engine at a major tech company. And he said, listen, today is the slowest it's ever going to be. Today is the dumbest it's ever going to be. It's running on its own to get faster and better and brighter by tomorrow. But let me dive into one thing that you had mentioned before. Let's look at the other side, away from the marketing side for a moment. Let's look at operational efficiency.
Yeah.
If AI can replace a bottleneck that is quietly throttling practice growth, right? What would some of those be? And how would you leverage AI to clear up those constraint theory pieces?
Yeah, so one of the biggest areas that we've seen AI in the operational space is really kind of implementing what we call it like an AI employee.
Mm-hmm.
We call ours our virtual CA, which is essentially a digital version of your CA that can help with like that online communication and tasks that are taking place with, new patients. So when you're running your practice, you're getting inquiries typically through those online channels. They're coming in via text, they're filling out chat widgets, their contact form, they're booking online, they're contacting you through your social ads or, a number of different channels. And these AI employee systems can essentially connect to those things and handle those inbound inquiries. So somebody signs up for a new patient special offer, or maybe somebody reaches out with a question, the AI is able to, read that inquiry, formulate responses, and have back and forth conversations with those patients to answer questions about payments and services and insurance and all the things. You can train them specifically for your practice. So if you offer a certain set of services, maybe you do laser, maybe you do decompression or whatever, you can teach it about those specific things. So it acts as if it's a CA sitting in your office. The systems can now work not only via like texting and emailing, but also over voice. So, and a good example of that would be, let's say you and your team are busy and you miss a phone call. Well, the AI can pick up that missed phone call for you. So that way it can have that interaction, answer those questions. And now they can even book appointments for you. So putting people on your calendar without any human interaction, which is just wild. When you pick up, it picks up the phone, it talks to that lead and that patient just like a human. You can almost not even tell the difference nowadays. It'll continue to get even more human sounding as it progresses. Answers questions, puts them on your calendar. Your team didn't have to do anything. Another example would be not just missed calls, but even after hours. So you probably have patients that call after your close or on the weekends when they're having like, they injure their back on a Saturday and or whatever, and they're calling and they're texting, etc. Now you have a system that can nurture them and get them on the calendar. So when you walk in Monday morning, you're not flooded and behind on all these leads that you got to follow up on. It takes a lot of that manual labor out of that sales process, that sales cycle, because you have technology doing it for you, and it's pretty wild how accurate and good it is.
I think it's pretty spectacular. And I know you and I have had this conversation before, and I always have a standoff if I get into a rotary or if I got onto what sounded like an Autobot or a robot, but
Yeah.
only really if I didn't know. But just last month, a client I'm coaching installed an AI receptionist to only pick up secondary calls, ones they didn't get on speed to lead. They couldn't get to the phone. AI picked it up and it scales because it could answer all of the missed calls, not just the one we didn't. And it set appointments that turned into $15,900 of new business. Actual closed money, $15,900 of new business.
It's wild.
So, what I'm learning, and tell me if I'm wrong, talk me out of this thinking if I'm wrong. This isn't about necessarily replacing staff, it's about multiplying them and increasing their efficiency or
Yeah,
effectiveness.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, the intent isn't to like replace staff, of course. We want to keep our people. Our people are what make our practice special and
Hmm.
what's creates a home for people. I think the intent is really to create operational efficiency and to kind of fill in the gaps where maybe human error happens or maybe when we're just busy. I mean, we're
Hmm.
running practice, we got patients in and out, we're putting them on tables, we're on the other line with another patient. It's not anything wrong with our staff. It's just that we can use technology to better serve our patients.
I think it's great. Now, that's all front end work, not missing new patient calls. What are some of the applications with maybe patients who fell off of care or cleaning up the leaks of a practice utilizing either AI or a virtual receptionist?
Yeah, so a good example of that would be doing some type of like reactivation system that's automated through these tools. So if you have your EHR system and you're using the calendars and et cetera, you can have the AIs be able to tell the last time a patient has been in the office. And if it's been too long, is your AI getting in touch with them? Is it reaching out and doing that follow-up and shooting them a text message? Hey, how you feeling? Do you need anything? We're here for you. That creates a really good personable experience for the patients. And it also takes, again, that workload off of your plate to make sure you're not having this leakage of patients that should be coming in, but they got busy, they were traveling or whatever the case is, and they forgot to get back on your calendar. So yeah, those are, another great example of operational things that can help you manage that patient load and manage those leads and keep your business thriving.
I think it's great. And, I know a little bit about you and what you do, and I've seen the successes of our clients who've come through your system. But I know that out here listening, driving down the road, someone's out there going, yeah, all of that sounds fantastic. Give me the to-do list for tomorrow morning. I'll have 20 minutes free between patient appointments. So if a doctor wanted to get started with content using AI, or think through their bottlenecks and what AI is available, what would you suggest for that guy who's got less than a half an hour to start wrapping his brain around this or her?
Yeah, so the easiest path to get involved with AI is to start interacting with those chat bots. I think ChatGPT is probably the most well known because they kind of were like the first that had the big market
Hmm.
release. There's obviously several other options that are available. Some of them can be arguably better. I'm personally using the Claude version of it right now. Gemini is also a really popular one. Pick your favorite, platform and start chatting with it. Go back and forth, ask it questions. The more that you start using it, the more you'll understand like how to prompt and how to give it context and start getting those good outputs. It's all a little bit of repetition is going to be super helpful. That's going to be like the easiest entry to kind of like lean into the AI space is starting with those chat-based tools because they're so easy to use. You can create so much efficiency just by chatting back and forth.
Yeah, and that's where I started with it too. And I made the mistake of actually showing it one of my digital hard drives, and he just said, "You need help." It was borderline insulting to me, but then it helped me clean up a new organizational structure. And I believe that AI still doesn't think with the insight that one of my clients are thinking about their practices, but it thinks faster. And so to quote Facebook, fail faster and you get somewhere faster, you get somewhere you want to go. I really believe that's true. I think you can test more ideas out using AI. But you built Chiro Basics with a specific reason in mind. You built the system. You have walked some of our clients through getting involved with it. Just let's call it a commercial. Let's call it an endorsement. Let's call it just a revelation of what's possible. What does it look like to work with you and Chiro Basics? And what are you thinking as deliverables or outcomes for a client?
Yeah, so our marketing program is probably a little different than some of the other agencies out there that focus in the chiropractic space. We look at marketing very like holistically.
Hmm.
A lot of agencies will get like dialed in on a specific channel. We run Facebook ads and we do websites or whatever the case is. And the problem and the challenge with that is that the patient journey is never linear. It's never like they wake up one day, they see an ad and they click on the ad and then they're a lifelong patient. Typically, there's a lot of touch points that take place that influence their decision to see a chiropractor. So we kind of built this like really robust, comprehensive system that handles that whole digital footprint. We don't want practices and doctors thinking about, again, like, oh, what social media post do I need to have and what email campaign do I need to send out? And we don't want you worried about that. So our system is kind of built to take all of that stuff off of your plate. And we use AI tools to help your practice internally, operationally, as well as, from the content on our side, trying to create efficiencies for you and get you to point A to point B as fast as possible. The intent is to create as many touch points online, create massive exposure and visibility, set yourself apart as the authority figure in the space. We want you to be the most well-known doctor in your community. So anytime anybody in your area has a headache, gets in a car wreck, has a back injury, they're thinking of you. And if that's the place that you can get, is that like local celebrity status, then you've won. It just becomes a big snowball effect. And it's not an overnight solution. Our system is not, we don't do gimmicky tactics. We're not going to get you 45 patients in 30 days. That's not the intent because we don't want to lie to you. True marketing takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of marinating, and it builds and it grows momentum. And AI can help you get there. So that's why we've been so like AI forward with all the things that we're doing and trying to help practices like navigate all these tools and figure out the best solutions and also implementing it internally so we can provide the best value with our marketing packages.
I think that's fantastic. And one of the things that you had us internally do was give away a lot of books. And I'll tell you that when you spoke for us and you presented in front of our conference, you showed up with boxes of books and you left without one. Tell us how people can get your book.
Yeah, so we have it for free for, any chiropractor who's looking for some support. There's a lot of really good information in there. We basically give you our playbook and we just put it into a nice little chapter-based system for you so you can follow that exact blueprint. It's available for free on our website. Just go fill out the form, give us your shipping address, we'll get it out to you. I think it's chirobasix.com/book. And yeah, there's an order form right there for you.
And you've got a podcast too. So people who hear you and just want to get focused in on marketing, get focused in on the efficiencies, whether it's AI or it's the other work that Chiro Basix does, how do they hear more from you? Where do they find you?
Yeah, so again, our website has all of our resources. We have a lot of good resources. We've got the book, we've got the podcast, we've got marketing checklists, we've got audit software, we've got, oh man, a bunch of different free video-based, information to help you create more video content. We have a big resource section on our website, which lists all of those things. So if you guys need help with anything, there's a bunch of free resources available to you. You don't have to work with us. We're just trying to help people that, maybe need a little bit boost in the digital space because it's a lot. There's a lot going on. And we want to support the practices so we can all help more people. So visit the website. That's kind of the best place to go for all of that.
Well, I think it's great. I enjoy working with you. I like our clients working with you. One of the things that we've found with some of the website companies is we'll want to make a change and it'll take a day, a week, a month, whatever. But when I've needed to make a change in copy or attitude on the website, the way the copy's written, I can just send you ideas. Your team is so responsive. It's really great. But I also know that in 5-star, we work with practices at different levels, successful single doctors, multiple associate doctors, and doctors who are removing themselves from the day-to-day. What kind of practice is the best fit for you and your team?
Yeah, I think we provide we have a lot of alignment. We love working with practices that of all sizes, depending on where you're at in practice. We have different size level like systems available depending on where you're at. So if you are like an entry level, like maybe you're just starting, we have, options available for, tight budgets and that startup kind of vibe. If you're, somewhere in the middle, we have mid-sized tier packages and systems that can really help elevate that existing experience. And then we have, the full-blown systems that for the larger practices that are ready to really dominate the entire digital space. So ideally, we have packages that are really made for any practices of any size. I don't want to I know that sounds, cliche, but we're kind of have this menu to make it available and accessible for all the doctors that are looking for some digital support.
I think that people out there understand different levels of practice. I know that for years, the number one reason people called us was, hey, we need more new patients coming in the building. And if you throw enough new patients at a practice, it looks better for a while. But if you don't fix the follow-up, the retention, new patients is always a struggle. And then between those two gaps, we have internal systems. And what I liked about what you were covering today is you kind of touched on all three of those. But I know for me, if I look back over my shoulder at my own timeline, I'm going, man, I wish I would have thought about at this stage of my practice. How do you get ahead of some of these challenges and tell people, listen, at your stage, these are the three things that need to be developed before you get there in order to not have to slow down? What are the pinch points that Chiro Basix is putting in those stop gaps at for quality control, or the accelerators so people just feel smooth?
Yeah, so there's a lot of like when you break down each individual channel on the online space, there's like a ton of nuances within each of those channels. And I think the problem is that there's kind of a misconception in a lot of how these channels will operate. So, the best example I could probably say is SEO. Anybody and their brother can say that they do SEO. You see SEO packages that are, from $100 to $5,000 a month. And it's like, well, what's the difference? Because why is there such a cost discrepancy? And it's because there's a drastically different level of service. So kind of with our program, what we're trying to do is like, we don't want you like to worry about it. We want you to not think about like title tags and meta descriptions and sitemaps and what content to produce and what's valuable and backlinking and internal linking and like all these like nuances that really make these channels complex for doctors who probably shouldn't be monkeying around with that. They should be focused on their patients and not dealing with like what's going on with Google's algorithm this month. And so what we're trying to do is in our systems is kind of take that like behind the scenes stuff and making sure that it's being done well and making sure that you're covered. So that way, when you get to those stages where, okay, now it's time for me to really start ranking on Google, or now it's time for me to really start running ads and getting good, like I can start putting some money into some ads. Do you have good like foundational components behind the scenes that are going to make sure that when you get to those stages and you're ready to start doing the next level thing, that you have the foundation to support it and it's going to work well. So there's a lot of nuances behind the scenes. I don't know if I could talk your ear off about like all the individual things, but I think from a high level view, that's kind of like the concept.
Nick, I've been coaching chiropractors for over 25 years, and a lot of them just want to focus on doing what they were trained to do, which is taking care of patients. But they know as a business owner, all of these other moving pieces are going on. And I love how you just dropped what might for many people sound like the ancient Greek language, all of these terms after terms after terms on all of these things, some of which they've heard about, read about, and never have heard about. So I think it's fascinating that you keep all of these myriad pieces running in the background. I think it's fantastic. Well, Nick, let me just say this. Nick Fisher, founder of Chiro Basix, author of the Chiropractors Marketing Playbook, and one of the clearest strategic thinkers that I've ever met in the chiropractic profession. Nick, thank you for bringing the goods today. Thanks for just laying it all out. And folks, we'll have all the links, all the resources that Nick mentioned here in the show notes. So go to chirobasix.com, connect with Nick, grab his book. He's giving it to you for free, and it's got a ton of stuff in it. And then pick one thing from today that you will actually work on this week, because that's how change happens. Remember, 1% a day is 365% increasing a year. All right, this is the Successful Chiro Podcast. Thanks for spending the time, and we'll see you next time.